We've all been reading about and seeing reports of the armed conflicts in the Middle East. And of course, the most recent activity has been in Beirut, Lebanon. And it brought to mind a story that goes back over 50 years, a long time ago. I was attending in Beirut a conference, the World Youth Conference, and I was fortunate enough to have been selected as a Canadian representative at the World Youth Conference. So as a part of being there, I was doing interviews for the radio station in Hamilton, CKOC, and sending reports back from Egypt, from Jordan, and now from Lebanon. And I was interviewing people at the conference, young people from all over the world, as well as dignitaries who were there to address the members of the conference. And it was my job then to edit these interviews and get them back to the radio station. So I had this package. It was a reel-to-reel tape, so it was about 4 inches across, 4 inches square to be exact, by about a half-inch deep. So I had to get this package on an airplane and get it back to the station. So someone said to me, well, here's an address, go to this building, they'll give you some stamps for the package. So I go to this address, and lo and behold, it's a cement block building. It's got no windows in it, no doors, and I'm to go up to the 3rd floor. So I go in the building. There is no elevator, of course. It's really a hollow building. I go up to the 3rd floor via the steps, and the 3rd floor is bare. It's a cement floor. Again, no windows, just holes where the windows will eventually go. And there at the one side is a desk and a man in uniform sitting at the desk. So I assume he's the guy that gives you the stamps. Seemed rather odd, but I go up to him and tell him what I have to do. I have to get this tape back to Canada. It needs to go by air. And he said, okay, I can get you some stamps. And by the time he was done, I had a label that was bigger than the box that held the tape. So we actually had to attach a tag to it to hold all the stamps. I think it cost me in excess of $30 to get that tape onto an airplane. And I wasn't sure how much he was pocketing and how much was going back to the government, but I wasn't there to argue that point. Later in the day, after all the sessions were completed at the World Youth Conference, I caught a cab out to the airport. And I went up to a counter and said, I need to get this on an airplane. It needs to go to a British post office to get in the mail. They said, oh, okay, there's an airplane over there. It's a BOAC, which nowadays is known as British Airways. And go through that door, and someone on the tarmac will look after you. Okay. So I go through the door, and I go out onto the tarmac, and sure enough, there's someone in a uniform there that looked like they had some level of importance. And I said, I need to get this tape into the mail packet. Yes, we can do that, no problem at all. They took the tape, go up to the mail bag, they put it in the mail bag, all done. I go back into the airport, and I look out the windows as I'm about to leave, and I see all these vehicles, jeeps and small military trucks surrounding this airplane. Not my airplane, another airplane. And they've got all the people who are working on the airplane under guard with machine guns. It turns out these people had large tins of olive oil. And inside the olive oil were drugs. They were smuggling drugs out of the country in these containers. So these people were herded onto the vehicles and disappeared into the night. I did exactly the same thing. I went out, got into a cab, and I hightailed it back to the university as quickly as I could. You didn't want to go out wandering the streets in Beirut at night. Even in those days, it was a dangerous place. There were armed religious factions that were creating problems in various parts of the city, explosions, people being murdered. It was a dangerous place, and I felt a real sadness because it was a beautiful country, some gorgeous scenery and great historic locations. It was really quite mind-blowing. And here were all these wonderful people trying to live their lives, trying to have a happy, safe life, and it wasn't to be. They had to watch over their shoulders at all times. Isn't it amazing? Here we are, nigh on 60 years later, and it's still the same. It's still the same problem. You wonder how people can go on. It's food for thought. And needless to say, I feel badly for all these people, as I'm sure you do as well, because it's always the innocents that suffer. So when I think back, and I think back to that radio story, while I do have a bit of a chuckle, there's also a sense of sadness that I feel as well.